Oh, good. Let's do it. Hey, what's going on, Wes?
What's up, man? Just having a nice holiday here, enjoying our friends in chat. What's up, friends? What's up, Mark Smith? Good to see you.
Mark Smith, thinking that the show wasn't going to start on time. Uh, we see what you're thinking, man. We see what you're thinking. And even though we weren't ready to start, well, we couldn't have you be right. We just went live anyway. How does that work?
Yeah, yeah, we're totally ill prepared now because we didn't take our extra 5 minutes, our customary 5 minutes of saying what's up before we hit the button.
Exactly. Hey, did you? I'm very curious about how your holidays went, but I got to say, I saw a commercial on TV that hit me right in the feels, Wes. There was a commercial that somebody opened. You know, they're all sitting around the Christmas tree, and one of the people opens a gift, and it says, "A star has been named." In your honor and whatever, the whole thing, like it's like a star registry type thing, right? And it was like this very emotional type thing. And one guy that was kind of hovering over the rest of the family watching the presents being opened starts giggling. And then then it goes into like a full on fucking roar, right? He just can't stop laughing at the ridiculousness of the present. And I was just like, and then it's like K Jewelers, buy them something they fucking want. Like that was the actual commercial. It was like, don't name a star after somebody. And I was like, shit. I have absolutely named a star after somebody in the last year. Like, is that is that the appropriate? Well, when somebody passes away, man, I was like, oh, I thought it was a really nice gesture. Like, hey, I named this star after your mom, and I thought that was a nice gesture. Is the real reaction laughter or I don't know. Like this commercial, it won't stop fucking with my head.
I think it's very indicative of the way people have changed over the last few years, to be quite honest. Because at least, when I was growing up and as I was a young adult, we would always take a moment, after opening gifts to kind of reflect upon the real meaning of the season.
Oh,
and you just don't see that much anymore, right? Now it's just all materialism. What did you get? What did I get? Nobody even pauses for a moment to even be thankful for all the blessings in our life. So, I mean, I guess in that way, it's quite revealing. This commercial, very apropos, I guess, so to speak. Maybe we all need to slow down with our gifts and start giving stars, or you could carve out a 1 foot by 1 foot parcel of land in Scotland and make somebody a lord with the.
No way.
What's the name of that service?
I don't know, but I want that. I want to do that now. Whatever.
Yeah, you can make me a lord, Brian. I could be Lord Wes Dillon for just a few small dollars. I can be a lord in Scotland.
That's awesome. Maybe is this a new console wars? Is it like jewelry versus star registry? Like this is. I love it, man. I love it. Never. Yeah. You know what, man? I think I've spent too much time thinking about this. We actually got the show started on time. It's 6:03, and we haven't even started this thing. Okay, let's go, man. You ready?
Let's go.
Ready. This is PSVR GamesCast Live, where we film live every single Monday, West Day, and Two Eyes Friday. You know what? I hate all of these things now. Can we just rewrite all of Gamescast Live, start to finish, like rescript the entire thing? My name is Brian Poff, right here, PSVR without parole, and to my right, the lovely as always, Wes Dillon from the ever so famous Virtual Strangers YouTube channel. What's going on?
What's up, Brian? You know what? I noticed on Friday that you just didn't even do it, man. You're just like, to hell with all that stuff. It's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, damn it. And I got to respect you for standing up for what you believe in, man.
Well, it's tough, man. It's tough because, everybody in the chat, it's nonstop arguing, it's bickering. And I feel like dad sometimes, right? It's like, settle down, everybody. I'll turn this car right around if you don't chill the fuck out, right? It's like, they're like, oh, it's going to be Monday J or Monday Day or Monday, or it's going to be West Nest Day or West Day. And then we go, old school Game Cat, who's just super pissed off about the entire Two Wise Friday thing. And I'm like, man, we're not going to please everybody all the time. And as Mitch Hedberg says, Last night, all those people were at my show. Guys, we do this show all the fucking time, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern. We do it live right here on YouTube for your viewing pleasure. And if you don't like staring at our faces, we totally understand you. That's cool. You got things to do. Maybe you have a long drive ahead of you. You need to occupy some of that long drive. The quiet is just too much to bear. So make sure you head out and check out PSVR GamesCast live on podcast services of your choice for, that's right, your oral pleasure. Wes, we have a few tips just to get the show started. You ready to run down these things?
Yes, please. But before we do, I just want to point out that Xenomorph points out that established titles is a scam, which is what we were just talking about a moment ago.
Yeah.
So I guess I can't really legally be Lord Wes Dillon, which is heartbreaking.
Aren't titles kind of a scam to begin with, whether they're the purchased ones or the achieved ones? It's all just a naming convention, and we've decided as a society to go along with it. It's all a scam. Don't let it fool you. We're all just glitches inside the matrix. Waleed is now a game cat, specifically a white tiger with the Canadian $2 tip, says it should be. Oh, here we fucking go, dude. We didn't even get 5 minutes into the show before people are already arguing about what it should be. He says it should be Westness Day. West Day is too generic. I agree. I think we started this and it was supposed to be Westness Day.
Well, here's the thing, and here was my whole thinking behind calling it West Day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Wednesday is spelled Wednesday, but no one calls it that, right?
Right.
Everyone says Wednesday. So my thinking is it should be spelled Westness Day and pronounced West Day.
I mean, I get it, but that's pretty heady, man. That's pretty heady. I think you're asking a lot for the casual viewer to understand what the fuck is going on around here. Because
nobody knows what's going on.
Because even with that explanation, I'm still not totally sure I follow. Man, Bear, Pig, Game Cat, Rare with the $2 tip says, curious why Sony. Here we go, man. We're just going to change the title of the video right now. This could be a 45-minute discussion right here. Curious why Sony didn't market PSVR2 with Christmas ads. Do you want to take this one, Wes?
I'm curious why Sony didn't market PSVR 2.
Period.
At all. Like, we've seen one trailer a couple of times. I don't even know if we've seen the trailer anywhere outside of
YouTube.
the blog, or, maybe YouTube. So yeah, I don't know why. I don't know why they haven't promoted PS5 for that matter. Maybe they feel like they don't need to. I don't know. I'm going to ask them if I see Jim Ryan next week. I'm going to ask him personally, what's the deal, bro?
I mean, so I'm kind of two minds about this. Obviously, as somebody who wants PSVR 2 to succeed as much as possible and have it be the most popular headset of all time, I want this thing to be marketed the fuck out of. I want it to be marketed nonstop. I want it every time I turn my TV on, every time I stream something on Hulu. I just want there to be a PSVR 2 commercial to start everything off. I think reasonably, though, you can't just go on Amazon.com in a lot of territories and order a PSVR 2 headset yet, right? They're still doing like this sort of limited pre-order deal, and I think that maybe CES will be the point where they say, okay, now pre-orders are open for everybody, no matter where you are. We've taken care of the people who made sure, who really were invested in this. We made sure to go above and beyond to let people order directly from us. We wanted to make sure that scalpers weren't an issue this time around. And here you go. Now, if you decided to throw caution to the wind and not order it yet, well, now it's open for everybody. Scalpers be damned. Like, do whatever you got to do. And then that's when the marketing would kick off too.
Exactly. And I think it's fair to point out that we are in a time of transition. And I'm not just talking solely about, the way the supply chain has restructured over the last few years, but we as a society are moving kind of out of the old world into the new digital world where most of the people are getting their entertainment on the internet versus the old cable and network style. A lot more people are shopping online versus buying things in brick and mortar stores. I mean, we're even getting our consoles now with the, disc version or the digital version. So I think we're all kind of in this kind of in between space now as we transition fully into a digital society. And I think from a marketing standpoint, it's kind of hard for a corporation like Sony to know, where to put their eggs, so to speak, because everything's changing so quickly that I mean, when you're talking about putting millions of dollars on the line for advertisement campaigns and things like that,
Yeah.
You want to make sure you don't make the wrong move. So it's kind of understandable with the current state of the world that that everything kind of just seems to be in flux right now.
Yeah. And I know I've said it 1,000 times, but it's worth repeating once more that we know that Sony wanted to make sure that PlayStation 5, because there is no PSVR2 without a PlayStation 5, and there's no PlayStation brand without a PlayStation 5, that PS5 get the full attention one more time this holiday season. That's what those God of War bundles were all about, and that's what the focus on God of War was all about. And so now that, you know, they've given PS5 2 full holiday seasons, now they can go, okay, that's taken care of. Let's start talking about what else you can do with this $500 machine you just bought. Owando Kirnando, which I feel like I did not give enough gusto to because it's on Mondays. AJ does the whole. Are you ready for this, Wes? Owando Kirnando with the €20 says whoop whoop West Day whoop whoop. You're welcome.
What up?
You're welcome.
Thank you. That was awesome.
I hope I made AJ proud. That's really like when I get out of bed every day. You know, I open one eye and go, oh man, I hope there's coffee. That's thought number one. Thought number two is, how can I make AJ proud today? And then every night I go to bed and I'm realizing that I'm a total fucking failure.
Yeah. Well, every morning when I wake up, I'm just like, God. All right. Yeah. Okay. I guess I'll do it again.
This is going to be one of those shows. Oh, AJ's in the chat. He's doing his best. So proud. Thank you very much. We got one more tip as well before we get the show really started. Sorry, Je ne sais quoi. Je ne sais quoi is like, Jesus Christ, are these guys going to talk about anything yet? The answer is no. 8 goddamn minutes, je ne sais quoi. That's the rule. Minimum of 8 goddamn minutes of chit-chat. Sadukar, 7th Legion, with the £2 says, I'm Scottish. Established titles, con everyone. Just a heads up. Every time I go on Fortnite, I look for Sadukar, 7th Legion, because I promised him we would play together. And every time I jump on, I go, my first game has to be with Sadukar if he's on. So just know, buddy, I'm looking out. You know, Wes, I don't feel like we've given the viewers enough attention quite yet. So like we like to do on GamesCast Live, I like to kick things off with a little bit of a viewer takeover question. And if you guys don't know how you can leave a viewer takeover question, well, a couple ways you can get your thoughts or your questions onto the show. You can tip in the chat like everyone else has been doing so far, and that definitely distracts us for a little bit. Or you can go over to Discord, click the link in the description below, and join our Discord. Over there, there's a viewer takeover channel. You can leave your questions. I always scour them before the show, and then that's a great way to get it into the show without paying a penny. Also, while you're clicking links in the description, go subscribe to Virtual Strangers. That link is in there too. You've got some big end of the year stuff coming up, right? It's not going to happen end of the year so much, or when's the actual plan for this, Wes? Let's get everybody on the same page.
Typically, we go first week of January. Like we will go on the 2nd or 3rd. But as you all know, I am not going to be here during this time frame. We thought for a moment about moving the 2022 show up into actual 2022. But then I got sick, and then our schedules didn't really line up and work out. So we're actually going to go the week after I return from CES. So it's going to be something like mid-January, like 14th, 15th. I think it's on the 15th. That we're doing the 2022 show, but the award categories have all been listed. All the nominees are named. There are polls on our Discord that are active right now and will be up for the next 2 or 3 days. So those of you who are members of our community, please go vote. That way the games that you feel deserve to be recognized
Wanderer
will be recognized.
Wanderer.
Yeah. Wanderer definitely won with the most nominations. I haven't counted it all up, but I know that to be a fact. Because it's such an awesome game and deserved to be recognized as such.
Also, fuck you, Game Awards didn't even nominate Wanderer as one of the best VR games of the year. So let's fix that. Everybody go over to Virtual Strangers Discord, click on every single poll you find, and vote for Wanderer whenever possible. Spoilers. That's what I did. And then I even got Wes to write in Wanderer on one of them.
Yeah, yeah. I forget which. It was like a
Story, yeah,
storytelling, or
yeah.
yeah. So yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, man, because it was a big topic of discussion when we went live on Monday. Uh, we don't have the biggest platform. Obviously, we've got a couple thousand subscribers. We're growing pretty well, but obviously, we're not on the level of like the VR awards or the Upload VR or Road to VR, any of that stuff. But as I look around the VR news landscape, um, I see time and time again these games that really don't deserve to win are winning all of these Game of the Year awards. So for that reason, I kind of feel like we are the real VR awards. We're the ones here recognizing the games that deserve to be recognized and representing the gamers. Unlike Upload VR, who made What the Bat their VR Game of the Year for 2022. So yeah, we're carrying that mantle this year, and we very much appreciate everyone who participates in our thing.
Yeah, nothing against what the bat, of course. I mean, that's yeah, could be great. Just seriously, yeah. All right, man. Well, let's see. Getting back to viewer takeover, right? Viewer takeover. Our first one comes to us from GC13, the Diet Pepsi Cat. Says, "Will there ever come a day that we stop bitching about the lowest bar headset? Right now, it's the Quest 2, but will there ever be a day we don't have a low bar headset?" Wes, I'm gonna kick this off and say, we're gonna bitch about the lowest bar headset, the one with the lowest capabilities, as long as there is a substantial difference when it comes to when you look at what's happening right now. I still think we're in kind of like Gen 1 of VR, even though Gen 1 has sort of gone through a bunch of different phases. The difference between console VR and PC VR and what Quest 2 is capable of right now is enormous. I think when we get to the point where it's like kind of like, I don't know, the PS3 generation, right, where everything's capable of something pretty impressive, and like the different headsets just have varying levels of that. Some of them are going to be way beyond, but even the baseline, the bottom of the barrel, not when the lowest bar headset, as GC13 puts it, when the lowest bar is still a pretty high bar, that's when we stop bitching.
I don't think people are ever going to stop bitching, at least not anytime soon. I think we'll see varying levels of it. I think we could see a lot less of it at certain times. But as long as PC gaming and the PC platform remains modular, meaning that people can update their machines every year, then that platform obviously is going to have most of the time have an advantage in terms of capabilities, which means those out there who are trying to push the limits of what VR is capable of are always going to be able to do a little bit more on PC from a technical standpoint. And of course, there will be times like in 2023, 2024, where PS5 and PSVR is going to pull ahead for a little while. And I'm sure standalone will do the same thing at certain points with certain technical advances. I think when cloud gaming really takes hold, I think that's going to really even the playing field across all platforms because everything's going to be like a supercharged PC at that point. But until then, I think there's going to be a varying level of people bitching about the other platform, the one that they don't play on, holding things back in some way, shape, or form. So it's been like this for decades. I wouldn't consider. I wouldn't think that it's going to change anytime soon.
Yeah, I think for me personally, I mean, I guess it's a completely different answer when you go, the VR YouTubers and VR gamers as a whole, right? We all have our specific standards that we hold things to. For me specifically, it's once everything looks good enough, because we've heard for years now, especially with PSVR1, people would try it and go, it's not quite there yet. And they meant that for so many different reasons. But a good reason that they would say all the time was because everything kind of looks like a PS2 game. And once everything, on every platform looks like a PS4 game, I'm going to be pretty happy regardless of what headset it is. But Vargelsoft in the chat reminds us that people are still complaining that the Series S is holding back the Series X, and then again on top of that, current gen gaming as a whole. So I think you're right. I don't think people are ever going to stop complaining as long as there's a cheap, affordable headset out there that people are interested in and that people are purchasing in. There's going to be a lot of complaining about it.
Right, and it's even more so with VR than it is with flat gaming because there's so many more aspects to what makes a VR experience than just what the game looks like, right? So for example, people are going to keep complaining about this wire on PSVR2 until there's a wireless solution, whether that be a new headset or a dongle of some sort that makes it wireless. And then people will get over that. The next thing is going to be mixed reality. We fully expect that the Quest 3 will be out next year. It's going to be heavily focused on mixed reality gaming. There are already games being developed for it by the major studios. And how much that takes off remains to be seen. But if that turns out to be a popular thing, then people are going to start complaining about PCVR not having proper pass-through support. It's just a never-ending cycle, and we will eventually begin to level out and have a little more parity. But again, it's going to take some time to get there.
I'm just looking forward to the point where we're getting so many games that we don't even have to talk about this kind of stuff on the show anymore. Like we can just it can be this thing that's happening in the background, kind of like a low rumble or murmur, and that we can just sort of talk over. And just talk about the fucking great games we're playing. That's the most important thing for me. So.
Well, the answer has always been the same thing for us, people who are gaming focused. Right. Exclusives are the antidote for all of this because you don't have to bitch about Quest 2 holding us back if Sony's releasing a banger every other month for PSVR 2. It doesn't matter what Quest 2 does at that point because the exclusives are there.
Yeah, it's an excellent point. I agree with you. Games will trump everything every time. Yeah.
Agreed.
Speaking of games and PSVR 2, the slow trickle of PSVR 2 upgrades, different developers finally kind of coming out of the woodwork and talking about their plans for their PSVR 1 games on PSVR 2 continues. I feel like every single week, Wes, it's another developer being like, oh, hey, just wanted to let you guys know, here's something that we're doing. And the something that we're doing this week comes to us from Alchemy Labs. Thank you to everybody who tagged me in this tweet. It came to us from, let's get this right, Obi at Obi-Wan's Ottawan. Obi-Wan's Ottawan. Why can't I speak, Wes? He actually tweeted at Alchemy Labs and says, any chance of seeing virtual reality on PSVR 2 as an update? Their response, which I think was very informative, probably more information. And what a strange way to get this information, Wes. Like, no, right? Like, we're just going to respond to someone who's tweeting at them. Just some, I don't know. But well done, Obi. This is exactly what we've been talking about on the show. Like, make sure, your voice is heard. Make sure people know, the different studios know that you want a PSVR 2 version of the games that you're interested in. So good job, man. This is exactly what I've been telling people to do. Like, tweet at them and email them and message them and do whatever you can so they know we want their games on PSVR 2. Alchemy respectfully responds by saying, no plans at the moment. We're afraid. But that's not to say it won't happen. We are first working on porting Job and Vacation Sim over to PSVR 2 in early 2023. This tweet does go on to say they don't have any plans yet as to how they're going to sell this thing. Job Sim and Vacation Sim, for all we know, could be you're going to have to buy them all over again, or you might get a free upgrade. They said they haven't quite figured that out yet. So what do you think of this? First and foremost, they're saying they're not working on virtual reality for PSVR 2. Let's start there, Wes. What do you think of that?
I'm not very surprised by that. It wasn't the most highly rated VR title in the world to begin with. It's not the most popular thing. Most people who enjoy that kind of game will be better served playing Trover or Accounting Plus or something. So I'm not super surprised that they haven't decided to bring that one over. Yet.
Also, they don't. It's not like Alchemy owns the Rick and Morty license. We have no idea how they were contracted to do that. So I don't find it to be a surprise at all that this is sort of on the bottom of their priority list. Like maybe once they get Cosmonia's High out, once they get Job and Vacation Sim out, then they'd be like, okay, well, this should be pretty easy to port this over. Let's talk to, whoever owns it, right? Dan Harmon. in company.
Yeah.
Yeah, Looper the
I think it's
Underground.
one of these. I'm sorry. I think it's one of these situations where they don't have any plans on bringing it over, but they want to they don't want to ever say never, because what if it turns out that PSVR2 blows up and there's like 20 million headsets out there in 2 or 3 years and people are buying everything on the store? In that case, of course they'll bring it over.
Yeah, I mean, Looper the Underground Game Cat with the €2 says, looks like they know which of their games are good. It's true. It's certainly not one of their better games. I don't want to call it a cash grab or anything, but it was super short, and it was maybe fun while it lasted, but it didn't last long enough to really warrant the $35 price tag when it came out. I think it was super expensive for what it was. So who knows? Yeah, absolutely. And so I guess that brings us to Josh76's question, right? Because Josh76 in Discord asked, do you believe that most PSVR devs are going to make their PSVR game playable on PSVR2? And part two of that question is, are they waiting for the market to dictate whether they should be charging for the upgrade? Referencing Moss being the first two games, Polyarch's games, Moss Book 1 and 2, being the first two games that we're actually going to be charging again for on PSVR 2. So let's kind of alter Josh's question a bit. Do you think that these will be paid upgrades, or will people have to buy them all over again?
Talking about specifically Job Sim and Vacation Sim?
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, they'll probably be free. Now, the exception to that being if they're working on like an upgraded, enhanced version with new features, which actually in the case of these games makes a whole lot of sense, because it's all about using your hands in these games. And as we know, PSVR 2 gives you a lot more capabilities of what you can do with your hands.
Yeah.
So if they're planning on implementing next gen features, they might charge for it. Now, does that mean buying the whole game over again? Not necessarily. They could charge like $5 or $10 for a next gen upgrade. But if it's a straight 1-to-1 port, which is what I expect it probably to be, I don't think at the end of the day that they'll charge anyone for that, because who's going to buy it again anyway? Not many.
Trying to bring up a vacation simulator trailer just to have something else playing here, rather. There we go. So that's a good question, right? I think you brought up a great question. If Job Sim was one of those games that pretty much from day one, because Job Sim was a launch title on PlayStation VR 1, we would look at the sales charts month after month after month for the last 6 years. And Job Sim was always like in the top 3. It was getting kind of out of control. So I think there's two ways to look at this. They go, well, this was one of our biggest selling titles ever on the platform on PSVR 1, right? So we'd be leaving a lot of money on the table if we just gave this game away to all the people who already bought it, right? But how many people that already bought it on PSVR 1 haven't already played through this thing as much as they're going to play through it? Right, they've already gone through it. They've seen everything there is to see. They've gotten the platinum trophy. They've had 6 years to do that. Depending on when you buy your headset. I think the money is on people, as you said, Wes. If this thing explodes and suddenly we have 20 million people who have a PSVR 2 headset, that is 14 million, at least 14 million new VR gamers that would potentially be interested in buying one of the highest selling PSVR 1 games ever made, right? And so where's the benefit of kind of screwing over the loyal customer base when like they're not really your market for this game?
Right. And that's why it's so mind-boggling that Moss did what they did. But again, a lot of these studios, they have marketing people who kind of live in their own bubble, and they don't understand necessarily the markets that they're working in or their customer base. And I think that might have a lot to do with what's going on at Polyarch, and who knows what Alchemy has going for them. I will point out that Alchemy is not indie anymore. Alchemy was picked up last year or the year before by Google, if I'm not mistaken. So it might not even be up to them whether or not they charge for the upgrade. That might be a decision that's being made upstairs.
I think there's some good comments in the chat, but my favorite has to be from MRI Gamer, who says, if Job Simulator tops the PSVR 2 charts for the year like it did with PSVR 1, I'm going to die on the inside. I mean, He's right though. He's right. Like we got to move on. Like Job Simulator was great for early VR, right? There wasn't any real motion. You get to do a lot of things with your hands. You get to experiment with things. It was it was sharp. The resolution was great. It didn't have to be like a super realistic game. It was playful. But like it was still, despite the fact that there was a lot to do, it was still very much an experience. And I think too many developers took that formula and ran with it and was like, oh, this is what VR gamers want, or this is what VR is right now. And it didn't work out for most of those developers. So I just really hope that like we say, okay, well, these games are fun and they're cute, and like, maybe for kids or for anyone who just wants kind of a short, fun little experience for a little while. Great. But I really hope that MRI is right. Hopefully these are not the games that we see topping the charts for the next like 5 or 6 years. I really hope that we see Call of the Mountain up there for at least the first year, right? Or Village up there for the first year, and then other AAA games take their place, rather than Beat Saber being up there, which is again a great game, a fine game if you're not Wes. So. But should it be number one? No, I don't think so. It should never be number one on the sales chart for years and years in a row. Like PSVR2 should be a place where these AAA games can thrive, and have a place to live and push VR forward for the first time in better part of half a decade.
I think that's very likely to happen, at least over the next couple of years. Now, it may change over time, but I think we're finally going to start to see some stratification in the player base where kids and casuals are kind of playing with their quests over here, while the hardcore, more serious gamers are playing on their PlayStations over there. Now, over time, as some of these kids get older and more people have PS5s, we could start to see the lines kind of blur a little bit more. But I do think over the next couple of years, we're going to kind of see the player base split a little bit, and people who are more interested in the more casual stuff are going to be over there, while we're going to be playing over here.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I mean, I think AJ and I were talking on Monday about how the mobile market and the console market split off and became two very successful things, all on their own, and so that could very much be what we're witnessing happening right now. This could be the very beginning of that split. A couple tips here. Owando Kiernando in the chat with the €10 says, oh boy, I'm going to move the mic back a little bit. AJ! God Cannon! All right. I apologize to my neighbors and to anybody with headphones on. Thanks, Owando. Always appreciate the support. Matt Campbell with the $5 says, any chance of YouTube VR support for PSVR2, movie theater, etc.? This is a huge question. This is one of those big... Sorry, my boom's just not working right. This is one of those big unanswered questions for PSVR2. It's crazy that we have so many unanswered questions for PSVR2. One of them being like, are we going to get a big screen app? Like, what is happening with, what is happening with YouTube VR? Why doesn't that work on PlayStation 5? Where is the support outside of, I feel like we have less support for VR apps than we did when all these headsets launched. Do you have any faith that Sony's working with these different studios, these different app makers? That sounds so dumb.
You would think so, but I really don't have a whole lot of faith. I really don't know. YouTube specifically always seems to be kind of slow to pick up support for these emerging platforms. So I think to answer the question directly, yes, eventually I think we'll see a YouTube VR app for PSVR2. I don't expect it to be available at launch, or probably even within the first year. I think this is something that will come along later as they start to see the platform growing and the potential there to draw in users. We'll see support eventually get picked up. But as far as like all these other things, I think Netflix has a VR app, and there's another platform, like another movie platform that supports a VR style app. I don't know how quickly they'll be adopted, but you would think that Sony would be proactive at being the multinational conglomerate that they are.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned because it does seem like, despite the fact that they're this multinational conglomerate corporation. None of those arms of Sony ever talk to each other. They don't seem to be working in tandem to make things, benefit PlayStation and all or benefit Sony. So, the fact that Sony's shut down their movie service, where you could buy TV shows and buy movies on PlayStation, on the PlayStation Store itself, to me was just like, what, dude? Like Sony Pictures, Columbia, this. Why? There's such a huge branch of the movie industry. Why would you be shutting down like this whole segment of revenue on your platform? And so, because of moves like that, I'm not confident whatsoever that they're going to make the PSVR2 this peripheral that you're going to use really in many ways outside of gaming. Like there's gonna have to be some kind of big screen app, hopefully. But outside of that, I just have no idea. And so I'm a little bit nervous when it comes to this kind of stuff. I want them to explode on the scene and be like, and you can do this, and you can do this, and there's PlayStation Home. It's like our metaverse. And then but so far we've heard nothing. So unless next week at CES we hear something like that, because I think this is their opportunity to do that. Don't you think? This is their first chance to go, listen, if you weren't sold, we're about to sell you. Here you go. Not only do we have a bunch of games to talk about, but we also have a bunch of apps and other uses outside of gaming that we can talk about for PSVR 2.
Unveiling the Sonyverse, or they wouldn't call it the Sonyverse. They would call it PlayStation Verse, PS Verse.
Oh, God. No. Yeah, everything they do is like PlayStation blank, right? It's like PlayStation.
But that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about all the non-gaming stuff that takes place in this brand new cyberspace that we're all building. So hopefully that will entail a revival of PlayStation Home and integration with various entertainment companies from around the world. But again, that's just what I would do. I'm not a Sony executive.
It's probably a good thing we're not Sony executives, because we would have sank that ship a long time ago, Wes.
Yeah, I'd be working on the revival of Here They Lie or something that no one cares about.
Yeah. Nick Mueller, the Game Cat, says the Astroverse. I like that.
Sure. Right. Yeah, I like it. It's a great mascot. I do expect big things from Astro this generation.
Me too.
Just saying.
Me too. Looks like our next news story comes to us from publisher Fun Train. You guys don't know, Fun Train published, not developed, Tarzan. They published, not developed, The Exorcist Legion VR. More recently, on other platforms, they published Twilight Zone VR. They had a nice little press release that Wes, if you're down, we can read through that and see what they had to say.
Absolutely.
All right, excellent.
Sure.
Well then, let me bring this up. So they said, so Douglas Neighbors over there published this article yesterday. It said Fun Train 2022 year-end update and beyond. My name is Douglas Neighbors, and I'm the founder of Fun Train. I want to take a moment to update you on our work this past year and what you can expect from us in 2023. Fun Train has been steadily growing thanks to you and others who share our passion for VR/MR. The tech is moving so rapidly that it makes my head spin sometimes. Seems like he's needs some haptics in a headset. But we are partnered with many incredible development teams that always have their fingers on the pulse and their sights set on the future. All right, now that we get the garbage out of the way, we can get to the actual news. 2022 was a very successful year for us. The launch of Twilight Zone VR and the subsequent holiday updates. I hope you enjoyed it. We also recently released a significant graphical update to the Exorcist Legion VR, as well as a massive overhaul to Tarzan VR on Quest based on community suggestions. We also dropped the price of Tarzan to $10, which I think is the right price for it. To make it affordable to as many players as possible. I hope you had an opportunity to try it out. Of course, we have also been hard at work producing Pocket Money Games' highly anticipated follow-up to The Exorcist Legion VR, The Exorcist Legion VR SIN. After in a couple sentences, I want to stop and talk about this with you, Wes. Safety in Numbers has grown larger in ambition over the past year as we continue to build upon the tension and horror of the first game. Side note, not developed by anyone at Pocket Money Games or Fun Train. That was all a Wolf and Wood thing. They've ditched Wolf and Wood and now using a different developer altogether. Can we stop there for a second? Wolf and Wood, super duper, like, I mean, graphically at least, very, very polished game with The Exorcist Legion VR. Controls were bonkers on PSVR, and there were definitely some glitches, some of them game breaking. Not everyone experienced them, so the level of overall polish was a little bit all over the place. Let's compare Wolf and Wood just for a second to Pocket Money Games, who made Twilight Zone. Wes, I haven't played Twilight Zone. Can you give me a little rundown comparison of these two studios based on these two games, based on Legion VR and Twilight Zone?
Well, it's kind of an unfair comparison, obviously, because the original Exorcist Legion VR was developed around PSVR and the PC platform, where the Twilight Zone VR was based on the Quest 2 hardware and is still exclusive to Quest 2. But with that said, I mean, with the Twilight Zone, it certainly left a little bit of room to be desired when it launched on Quest. But as has been the case for most Fun Train titles, it has gotten progressively better over time.
Nice.
And now it looks pretty good, man. It looks pretty good. They've certainly added in some resolution where it was needed into the Twilight Zone, and I found it overall to be a enjoyable experience. Now, with regard to the Exorcist Legion VR, they've done the same thing there, and it has had massive overhauls, especially on Quest. It did get an upgrade last year on PlayStation as well, but they did a huge upgrade to the Quest version this year, and it's a very, very good looking game now, no matter what platform you play it on. So I don't know. I can't speak specifically to what to expect from Pocket Money Games. I can say that Fun Train does have a pretty good record when it comes to support over time. So even if it's not the best thing on day one, I do expect it to get better and better and better.
All right, so them in developing this game doesn't concern you.
No. I think it's a good sign, actually, that we're not getting this game this year, like it was originally supposed to come this year. Now it looks like they're pushing it back probably a full year. And as this update here alludes to, their ambitions have changed, which means that that they expect this to be an even better experience now than they did when they launched it.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good sign that we're not getting this for another year. I think the fact that we have new and emerging platforms, be it PSVR2 or Quest 3, certainly bodes well for this title. So I'm not worried about that. Not at all, honestly.
Nice. Well, let's hope for like an October 1st release, so we can be playing this all through spooky season. Very excited about that. Jim continues. Was it Jim? Doug continues.
Jim Neighbors, by the way, was Gomer Pyle, but
thank you. I knew that's the name that was in my head. Jim Neighbors.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Gomer continues. He says, personally, I can't wait for people to see the new avatars in the police precinct. As a reminder, this is a co-op game that will require you to watch your friends back and protect them, and hopefully they do the same. Unlikely if I'm your cohort. Although we plan to release it late this year. It's just not in the cards and will be worth the wait. We now intend to release SIN in the second half of 2023. That screams October to me. And after we've had ample time to ensure that it is unsettling and fun as we dream it to be. We're not pulling any punches either. And already 2 internal testers have complained that it's, quote, too scary. Gomer says, I always take that as a good sign. I get nervous when I hear this stuff. Right, when we're being promised. The same thing happened with Wraith the Oblivion Afterlife, a game that's fine as a game, but I don't think it's scary as a horror game needs to be. And it's talking about it as if it's as if it can be compared to Resident Evil 7 or Amnesia: The Dark Descent. Those types of games, or Alien Isolation, was I think unfair to Wraith. So the PR team did did not do Wraith justice. I hope that Gomer here is not doing the same thing with Sin that Fast Travel did with Wraith. They're setting our expectations far too high. We'll see that.
That's a good point. And I think that, if this is something that people want to play, then most likely people's expectations are going to be too high. So I think that your thought here is actually wise. I think that more VR studios, or at least the marketing parts of these studios, should maybe take a little exercise in. You want to build hype, but you want to control it as well. You don't want it to get out of control, because more times than not, that's what happens here. But yeah, I'll be interested to know who these testers are, what kind of games they've played before. To be quite honest, I love VR horror games. It's my very favorite thing. I could probably count on one hand the number of games that have actually scared me. Typically, it's just a dark experience that I enjoy. But only a couple have actually had scary things. But for what it's worth, the original Exorcist Legion VR had some pretty scary stuff in it in certain areas. So I guess time will tell, obviously. But I mean, it's good that at least this thing seems to be scaring someone. So right. I'll take that as a good sign, and hopefully that bodes well for this game.
Yeah, you make a good point. Like, who are these people? Who are these testers? It's funny that we find so many VR studios that don't have VR gamers coming in and checking out their games. It's just either just normal gamers or people who don't even play video games, never played a VR game before. And so, like, what's your basis of comparison if your testers are in there being like, this is the scariest thing I've ever seen in my life, but then they don't watch horror movies, they don't play scary video games, they're not VR gamers. Like, then it's like, yeah, of course it's gonna be the scariest thing you've ever played in your life because you've never played anything else. So very curious to see where this all takes us. I will say that so far we haven't heard anything about Phasmophobia coming to PSVR2, which is really on my wish list. My wish list is extremely long, but Phasmophobia is probably in the top 10 VR games out there right now that I want to see on PSVR2. Be very interesting if this hits PSVR2 first. If this is our Phasmophobia type experience, we don't really know what the gameplay mechanics are like or what the gameplay loop is, but if this is our Phasmophobia, then I really wish it the best.
I will say this too. Something that does concern me a little bit here is I do feel like the bar is going to be a little bit different in terms of scare factors when you're considering the fact that this is a co-op game. We all say we want more co-op driven campaigns in VR, story driven campaigns we can explore with our friends. I'm not so sure that this is something that I really want in a horror game, though, because certain things can be very scary to you when you're alone, when you're by yourself in these terrible, horrifying situations. But more often than not, when you get in VR with your friends, it's more of a goof off session. And even if something there would typically scare you, I don't feel like people are going to let their guard down so much. And things that would typically scare you, I think most people are going to laugh off, even if they are a little bit nervous about it. I think most people are just going to point and laugh and make jokes, which could ruin a game like this. So it is a little bit worrying to me that we're starting to see co-op come into our genre. But again, time will tell. Maybe it'll be the best thing ever. And if you have the right friends with you, everybody will get freaked out.
Yeah. Excellent point. Yeah, well, watching, it's a much different experience when you're watching a scary movie at home by yourself in the dark, no one else is home, and then or when you're at the movie theater with all of your friends and you're all high as a kite and and you're just making fun of everything that comes up. Radically different experience, and I've been on both sides of that, obviously. High as a kite, probably more often than not. Dude, we have some good comments and some good tips, but real quick, I want to make sure we get through the rest of this news story. If we scroll on just a little bit further, Gomer goes on to say, in other platform news, the Twilight Zone will be coming to PSVR 2 with our goal of late summer release, and it will also be joining Tarzan and The Exorcist on the Pico platform. More on that as it develops. We've got plenty of top secret experiences underway, blah, 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 blah. I think this is all we need to know from this article. Twilight Zone coming to PSVR 2. Which not super impressive graphically from what I've seen. But Wes, you talked to Gomer earlier today. I'll stop calling him Gomer. That's fucking really not funny, but and also probably disrespectful. But you talked to Mr. Neighbors earlier today, didn't you? And you got a little bit more information on this.
Yeah, just a little bit. I did after I talked to you and knew that we were going to be talking about this press release earlier today. I did reach out to Mr. Neighbors to see if he wanted to kind of give us any kind of idea what we could expect. Honestly, all I wanted to get from the guy is this going to be a straight Quest port, because we're getting a lot of that, right? And it's something that's concerning a lot of people. Are we just going to get the Quest versions of games on PSVR2, or can we expect some upgrades? And he couldn't elaborate a lot on it. He did say that it won't be a straight port. We can at the very least expect some graphical upgrades when the game comes to PSVR2. I did ask about PSVR2 specific features and will they be supported. He didn't want to confirm anything specifically. He did mention a couple of different things to me, but he didn't want to confirm either of those. So I'm not going to put it out there just yet. But he did say that he did expect that the studio that's working on this game and bringing it to PSVR2 will implement some of PSVR2's unique features. So this is not going to be a straight Quest port. At the very least, it's going to look a lot better on PlayStation.
Good. At least looking better is the least of what we want. We got Nihilist Ryan, the game feline, with the $5 tip, says prediction. I love predictions. They're like one of my favoriteest things after horror movies. Pizza, Snuggles. That's it. Then it's predictions. Prediction: the next 3 AAA VR games Sony will announce are Gran Turismo 7. I think that's safe. Ace Combat 7 or 8. And Astrobot 2. Pizza bet. You think those will be the next 3? I mean, that's very specific. You could have gone way bigger with this and probably won this pizza bet easily. What do you think? What do you think, Wes? What, just off the top of your head, because this was not in our run of show, you didn't have time to think about this. What do you think the next AAA VR game Sony will announce are? And apparently, Nihilist Ryan is giving us a little bit of leeway here because Ace Combat is obviously a Namco title, and so what 3 AAA games will Sony announce, even if they're not first party?
All right, so I agree with Gran Turismo. I think that I'm kind of surprised this one hasn't been done yet.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would expect. Honestly, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised to have this one announced next week.
Agreed.
I fully expect that this year we will have a new Astrobot title announced. I fully expect that to happen. We've heard a lot from that studio, Team Asobi, about what their next title is going to be, and they've made a lot of allusions to taking it to the next level, meaning it is going to be a big production with a lot of money behind it, and they've always been known for integrating new technology. So I fully expect that we're going to have a hybrid Astrobot title this year that will probably support PSVR 2. Now, for a third title, I mean, there's a lot that you could go with here. We've already heard rumors that a new Wipeout title is coming. I'm fairly confident that there's going to be Twisted Metal at some point. So I don't know. I don't know what the third one that we would maybe see first or next rather would be. I'm confident we're going to get GT7 and Astrobot this year, and I think Wipeout and Twisted Metal certainly in the next couple of years. And that's really where my mind is going right now.
Right on. Yeah, I think a couple good choices in there. Gran Turismo 7, I think, is the obvious one, right? Like, again, yeah, 100% with you. It's insane. It's bonkers right now that hasn't been announced yet. I do feel like that is something that they're saving, they're holding back. I'm gonna go out on a limb a little bit with the Bungie acquisition. I'm gonna say we need some first person shooters, right? And I think Destiny would be an amazing choice. I think the Destiny audience is they've got a rabid fan base. It's almost like, I would say, probably as much or not more so, very gung-ho about their game as the Horizon audience is. So I think Destiny would be a good choice. And then I'm going to go with The Last of Us. I think that is The Last of Us is. I think Sony needs to show us what hybrid game really means, and they just forced everybody. Like, they just took money out of your account without asking you. They literally made everybody buy The Last of Us Part 1 on PlayStation 5. And since they forced us to do it without even asking, no, I feel like this would be like a really goodwill gesture. Say, hey, we know you just bought this game for $70. Look at what else you can do with it. It's not just like this huge graphical upgrade, but you can also play it in first-person VR. This is what we mean by hybrid. And here it is. You already own it. It's awesome.
That would be that would be the best thing ever. And since you're putting me down that path, why don't we throw Returnal in there as well?
Oof.
Like The Last of Us and Returnal, if we get those in VR, it's over, man. That's all I'm ever going to play for the rest of my life. So yeah, I like where you're going here.
Nice. It moves us on to Louis M. Huesca. I hope I got that right. With the $5 tip, says, any update on the Killzone game you reported on a few months back? Also, what do you know about the rumored Half-Life Alyx game for PSVR2? Kojima? Question mark. So he's getting a lot of questions in here on his tip. We know nothing more about the Killzone game that I reported on because even that story was outdated, right? I think the only reason we got that information was because it had happened so long ago that somebody finally got drunk and told somebody something they shouldn't have at a bar somewhere, and loose lips sink ships. And guess what? I'm sinking that ship. So again, we haven't heard an update about the Killzone VR story since 2019. When Supermassive was like, okay, listen, we're out of here. We're done with VR. Sony took the IP back and said we're gonna develop this internally instead. And that's the last word we heard on it. I think that's an important last word, because if the last word we heard was Supermassive was no longer allowed to develop that game, and that was it, that would have been one thing. But the fact that we heard, hey, we're taking you off this project, we're going to develop it internally instead, that's a whole other thing, right? Because if that's 2019. Now we're coming up on 2023. Talk about a 4-year dev cycle on a PSVR2 game. Like, Call of the Mountain might not be the biggest PSVR2 game that Sony has in development, first party. We just don't even know that it exists yet. And I think we're going to be hearing a few more of those stories coming up really soon. So that's the extent of what I know about Killzone right now. And Wes, I mean, Half-Life Alyx, no one knows for sure, but as many people have said, it does seem like the worst kept secret, right? Because like everybody's like, oh, this is just happening, but no one's talking about it for some reason. Is that your impression on that too?
Yeah, I mean, we've heard this from a few insiders now, right? Insiders that this is kind of the worst kept secret in the game, or at least the VR gaming industry. I don't know. I don't know what to think about it. I do. I've said this before. I think it's a little overblown, the impact that this is going to have on PSVR 2. So I'm hoping that Sony didn't, throw the kitchen sink at Valve to get them to bring this over, because I think they might be pretty disappointed on the results that it brings. People within the VR space are all very excited about Half-Life, and obviously Half-Life fans would be excited about it as well. But we're talking about a 3-year-old game here at this point, that most of the people who wanted to play it have played it. So I think that it's more likely than not coming. But I don't think it's as big of a deal as a lot of people like to think that it is.
I don't think it's the end all be all deal. I do think though that it's a bigger deal than even you're making it out to be, because I'm huge into VR. I've connected my headset up, I've connected my Quest up to PC and played, whatever games I felt like I needed to, and I still haven't played Alyx, right? So I think a lot of people are in the same boat as me, whether they've only played PSVR and then maybe dabbled in Quest and like maybe even dabbled in PC VR. But I think that PC VR is like one of the smaller segments of the VR gaming populace. So I'm thinking there's a lot of people out there, man, who are interested in VR, maybe who haven't even ever bought a VR headset ever. And we're like, oh, I've heard great things about this Alyx game. Is that coming to PSVR or PSVR 2? And so I think it's an important game. I don't think it's going to sink the ship if it doesn't come, but I do think it's pretty important that it does get here.
I'll tell you where I do believe that it would have quite a bit of value, is that wow factor, that word of mouth, because it is a breathtaking experience from the moment that you're in that world. Everything is so realistic, not only graphically, but the physics in game. It really is, on a technical level, the best that VR has to offer, even still today. and that wow factor is there. And especially in these early stages of VR, that goes a long way to selling your hardware. So I think in that respect, a lot of console gamers, a lot of people who don't have PC gaming, a lot of people who've never tried PC VR, when they put on this new headset with this 4K HDR display and these advanced controllers, and they get fully immersed into this world, it is going to drum up a lot of talk and excitement about the platform, and I do think it will provide Sony a lot of value in that respect. So yeah, I don't want to undersell it at all. It's an amazing title, and it certainly has a lot of value to any new platform.
Nice. Yeah, I think along with Call of the Mountain, this could be like the 1-2 punch where it's where anybody getting into VR for the first time or finally upgrading to next gen VR be like, wow, what a difference some of these games can make, or what a difference the technology makes or the hardware makes or whatever. Just really getting people in there and being like, okay, we see, we get it. This is next gen. This is what people have been talking about. I'm excited, man. I'm excited because I've purposely held off from playing Alex, not because my computer couldn't run it. Shockingly, it could. Just because I want to be wowed. I want to play it on PSVR2.
Please,
I may
please capture or stream at least the first 30 minutes to an hour of the game. I just want to. I want to get your reaction.
Yeah.
To what it is to be in that world. It really is breathtaking. It's amazing.
You know what we say around here, Wes? Whatever Wes wants, Wes gets.
All right. I didn't know we say that, but I'm going to remember that now. Thank you.
Well, now that I've said it, I guess we'll stick with it. We also got Sean Turner with the $10 tip. Dude, we should be wrapping up the show right now. We haven't even gotten to our main topic. Sean Turner, you're welcome, everybody. Like, nice long show. If you got a nice long drive, if you're coming back from the holidays, hopefully we're keeping you intertwined. Sean Turner with the $10 tip says, bring back rigs. And I wish they'd make a third-person football game. I don't like the first-person view. In Farpoint 2, please. Happy holidays to all. Sean Turner took this opportunity to give us his PSVR2 wish list, and I appreciate that. Rigs, dude, I feel so bad every time I say that I don't like rigs. Like, it just, the sport itself didn't do it for me. I love the freedom of motion and kind of like being a very few games allow you to just kind of like run around and jump and kind of double jump and fly and stuff. And I just didn't like the actual sport of rigs. So I wish they would take that engine and like make a different game out of it. I don't know. Rigs?
It makes sense to me. I didn't ever get heavily into rigs either. I played it a few times, but it was during that honeymoon period with me and PSVR where I was playing everything that I could play.
Yeah.
And that wasn't one that brought me back. Like, I was more into like Starblood Arena than I was into rigs.
So good.
But I mean, I was impressed with it graphically. I thought the movement was really cool. I mean, I liked it. I never really said anything bad about it. It just wasn't a game that brought me back again and again.
Yep. Anthony Jones, dude, he's told me like 3 times now, and I don't remember which it is. But we're gonna go with Anton. Anthony. I've said them all. Jones. With the $2 tip says, any chance for third-party pre-order info at CES? I think that's the hope. Right? Because since you can't just go on Amazon.com or Walmart.com and pre-order a PSVR2 yet, that's the only reason I feel confident being like, well, they haven't kicked off their marketing strategy yet, because you can't just buy one yet. You can't give Sony your money yet. It's more complicated than it has to be right now. Hoping that at CES they go on Amazon, go on Walmart. You can pre-order it now. We're kicking things off. Here's the full launch lineup. Here's Gran Turismo 7. Here's Half-Life Alyx. And they just give everybody what they finally want to hear, along with an easy way to pre-order it. Done.
I agree. It's certainly possible. It is, as we mentioned last week, the last big stage before the thing comes out. We're here now. I mean, it's under 2 months away. Like, they can't lean on this excuse anymore that it's next year or it's way down the line or the future of VR isn't happening this year. It's happening now. It's happening in just a few weeks. Mere minutes away, Brian.
Minutes away.
So this is kind of their last chance to really make a marketing push, any kind of push at all. So yeah, I think things like information with regard to the retail partners makes a lot of sense here, as does information about everything else that they've been withholding.
Enthusiasm Enthusiast has a question for you, Wes. He says, Wes, what does your shirt say?
It says, "I assure you, we're open." And if you know what that means, then you know. And if you don't know, you should know.
Agreed. If you don't know, then you're really going to not care about me talking about Clerks 3 for the next 2 minutes. Because, dude, as somebody who didn't really love Clerks 2, I'm a big Kevin Smith fan. I kind of hate saying this too. I hate saying that I'm a bigger Kevin Smith fan than a Kevin Smith movie fan. Like, I love just watching him on stage and talk and talk and talk and talk for like 3 to 4 hours at a time. Like, he's just the best storyteller of our generation, and like he endlessly entertaining, right? Whether it's about something I care about or not, he finds a way for me to be interested, and I fucking love it. So I love Kevin Smith. His movies, they're pretty good, right? Clerks 1 was something. Clerks 2 felt like kind of a cash grab. And Clerks 3, I reluctantly watched it last week, and dude, it was good. It was very good. It's I think one of his better movies.
Now I'm excited to see it. I haven't watched Clerks 3, and I consider myself a huge fan of Kevin Smith movies. Like, I like them all. Even Chasing Amy, I thought was good.
Even Chasing Amy.
Yeah, I like Dogma.
What about Tusk?
Like all of
what
them.
about Tusk? We need to talk about Tusk.
I don't think I watched Tusk.
Okay.
I know what it is. I don't think I watched Tusk.
Yeah, Braxbro in the chat says Tusk VR. No, thank you. I'm good.
My point is that I'm glad to hear you say that. I agree. I think Clerks 2 was a cash grab, although it had its moments, man. Pillow Pants, that's hilarious. Anyway, yeah, man, I'm excited. I'm more excited now to see Clerks 3 because I haven't made it a point to go watch it. I haven't been super excited about it because Clerks 2 was just okay. To be quite honest, I would have been more excited to see Mallrats get a sequel than us get a third Clerks movie.
Yes.
But cool. I'm excited now to check it out, and I'm sure I will be whenever I get a minute, and I don't have any idea when that's going to be.
I love that Nick Mulo is directly opposed to everything you're saying. He's saying Chasing Amy is awesome, one of his best, and he follows it up with saying the phrase that you're looking for, Wes, is even Mallrats. Not even Chasing Amy. Mallrats. No, I like them all. I do like them all. Though I will say Tusk as a Kevin Smith horror movie, you can tell there was a lot of pot smoking going on. Like, the first 30 minutes of that movie should have been stretched out to the first hour and 20 minutes of that movie, and then the last hour of that movie should have been like 10 minutes because, like, holy shit, the reveal just came too early, and I just sat there being uncomfortable for literally an hour, going, when is this going to end? All right, man, we got to move on to our main story now that we've gotten our Kevin Smith conversation out of the way, and that is Hideo Kojima in virtual reality. What, dude? This I feel like this topic just in itself, all sorts of variations of this topic come up every couple months. Is, because he's constantly teasing something. Everyone thought back in September that he was making a VR game because there was a picture of him with a VR headset on, and he was talking about Kojima Productions VR, but it turned out they were just doing a virtual booth at TGS, right? And so this conversation, I feel like, is going to never end until we finally do get a game, a virtual reality game from Kojima Productions. But can you get me caught up a little bit on what today's story is specifically as I bring it up on the screen?
Yeah, well, honestly, I feel like today's story is a non-story. It is from some foreign website. After you mentioned it to me, I did a little web search to see what's out there. And this is the one story. There hasn't been any follow-ups. Typically, when you see a story like this, there'll be stories on the story.
Yeah.
But there's none of that. This is the one. There is a Reddit post on it, which doesn't really elaborate. It's just people commenting on it, and that's it. And basically the gist of this story, from what I can tell from the very poor Google translation of it, is that the author is bummed out because apparently at some point Kojima was working on a VR game and then had to hit pause on it and suspend it. So this article treats it, or at least the translation of the article treats it, as if this is a permanently canceled Kojima project. And man, isn't it such a bummer that Kojima's not going to be working in VR anymore?
Yep.
That's not exactly how I took it, though, Brian. I took this personally as confirmation of something that we've suspected for years, and that is Hideo Kojima really wants to do a VR game. Like he really wants to. Nobody, I think, in terms of like the development, gaming development world, I don't think there's any single person out there who's waiting on the VR marketplace to catch up with flat gaming as much as Kojima. I think this guy can't wait to bring what I'm sure is a very elaborate idea that he already has to life in some VR platform. Whether that happens sooner or later, I'm very confident now more than ever, Brian, that one day we're going to see this.
I agree. I agree. So again, this is I can't comment on the writing of the initial article because, of course, we did have to use Google Translate for this. It was written by Max Ledroom. I'm sure you see him all over Twitter, constantly, doing his best to be a VR journalist and bring us the news. We've definitely used articles from Max Ledroom before, so it's not certainly not somebody we've never heard of before. But the problem here is that what it links to right off the bat is a Japanese website called Project Shonen Magazine, and it's essentially, this whole thing comes from an interview that Hideo Kojima was doing with a manga artist, and kind of in passing seems to have talked about VR and said that it made him sick. You click the link and it brings you to Pocket Shonen Magazine, but not the article, not the interview. It's in the website is not someplace that I would get any VR information from ever. Like, it is definitely a manga website that is not a news site. And so, putting that aside for the moment, let's see what Max has to say. We just learned that Hideo Kojima's VR game has been canceled, and unfortunately, this is not an April Fool's joke. An interview has been published in the Japanese digital medium Pocket Shonen Magazine, where Hideo Kojima and manga artist talked about their work. The author of the manga that Kojima was talking to has made his manga is about a fictional virtual reality game. And so the cartoonist asked Kojima what he thought about VR games, and he replied, this is the Kojima quote, again, probably horribly mistranslated by Google. He says, "I tried to play, but I got dizzy. In fact, I once tried to make an innovative game in VR, but that project was also put on hold. Although I think there is a technical potential for virtual reality. Technology has evolved more and more, and there are more things that can be done, not limited to virtual reality. So I think we can do more variety of games in the future." Now, I don't think we need to go much further with this article, Wes. I think we've extracted everything we need from it, I believe. But what this quote leads me to believe is that he says, "I tried to play, I got dizzy. I once tried to make an innovative game in VR, but that project was also put on hold." That's interesting because it sounds like there was a VR specific project Kojima was working on. This does not exclude the possibilities of other Kojima production games being brought into VR, potentially being, ported in, especially with the way that Sony works so closely with Kojima, right? I mean, they built Kojima his studio where he made Death Stranding. Sony built that studio. They paid for it. They were like, here you go, right? And so they work with him really closely. And so I would venture to guess that when Sony's talking to Kojima and saying, "Hey, we're making PSVR2, and we're one of our focus is going to be on hybrid games," we think Death Stranding, because the locomotion system isn't out of control or bonkers, would be a perfect fit for VR, right? Maybe there's some kind of interesting method, the way they could, because you're carrying stuff in that game quite a bit. There's an interesting way they could use VR to make that more interesting, right? Wouldn't really require too much of Kojima's input if that kind of stuff was making him motion sick. It doesn't mean we're never getting a Kojima Productions game in VR. Like, Kojima doesn't have to have that much input here, does he?
No, and in fact, anyone who takes the time to look into it will find out that Kojima has been involved in VR from the very inception of consumer VR. He's been involved behind the scenes in various different projects on various different levels, and is obviously an enthusiast for it. In fact, he told, I think it was Rolling Stone magazine a few years ago, that he will definitely do a VR game at some point. He just doesn't have the time to do it right now. And we all know that in terms of game development, money is time. So really what it's going to take is one of two things happening. Either A, the market catches up a little bit and it becomes very profitable to make a VR game, or B, some external force, such as a Sony perhaps, steps in with a big bankroll and makes it happen. But I do think you're right. There is a third option, which is some existing title like Death Stranding being ported in as a hybrid game, and even the possibility of that I find to be very exciting. But yeah, I think that this translation is probably pretty off base. Again, we know that Kojima's been involved with VR for a very long time, and I just don't see that being the case if it's something that makes him sick every time he puts a headset on. So yeah, I would take that very much with a grain of salt.
Well, this would also be a great, again, I keep going back to how closely Kojima works with Sony. And when it comes to motion sickness, one of PSVR2 selling points will be alleviating motion sickness, right? Not just from like higher frame rates and higher resolutions, but also haptics in the headset. And so I think if Kojima was out there saying, "Oh, VR makes me sick," Sony would swoop in and be like, "Check this shit out," right? If you used a Quest 2 before or a PSVR 1 before and it made you sick, well, check out PSVR 2 and let's see if you can make the game that you want to make with our new headset, because it supposedly, according to many studies, will help alleviate motion sickness. And so if Kojima does suffer from this kind of stuff, then what a great opportunity PSVR 2 will be for him to finally make the game that he wants to make. We don't know. I mean, actually, we kind of do know, right? Like, wasn't it sort of like known that he has a PSVR 2 dev kit? Like, he's got to be looking into this and seeing like if this is something that he can do. So I don't know, man. I feel like this is, you're right. It's kind of a non-news news story. And I do think that maybe the author jumped the gun a little bit, and that this isn't quite the story that he thinks it is.
I'd like to point out that Sean Turner in the chat asks, "How will the haptics help?" And obviously, we aren't scientists here. We aren't researchers in the field. But I would think that the idea is here. It's commonly believed that beyond the basic stuff like frame rate and things that can help motion sickness directly, a lot of people believe that the cause of VR sickness is external stimuli. The external stimuli that your body is feeling or not feeling doesn't match what your eyes and ears are seeing. So your eyes and ears are telling you that you're moving around or in this other world, but your body doesn't feel anything. You don't smell anything. And a lot of people think that disconnect is what causes VR sickness. And by implementing haptics, in the hands, in the headset, and creating more of an external stimuli for your body to experience in conjunction with what you're seeing and hearing, the theory is that will somehow alleviate VR sickness. And I think it makes a lot of sense as a layman, of course.
Agreed. But also as a layman, and not understanding this fully myself, I have to trust what science has told us, right? I'm no scientist. I believe what people who know this shit tell me, and so that's why we go to this Road to VR article, and we trust what the scientists over there have said. Researchers say head-mounted haptics can combat smooth locomotion discomfort in VR. Researchers from the National Taiwan University, National Chengchu University, and Texas A&M University say that haptic feedback delivered to the head right from a VR headset can significantly reduce discomfort related to smooth locomotion in VR. Moving players artificially through large virtual environments isn't a trivial task. While there's many different ways to move around in VR, smooth locomotion, the kind you'd find in most first-person non-VR games, is a popular method because it maps easily to existing game design paradigms. Unfortunately, this method of virtual locomotion isn't comfortable for everyone. In a paper published as part of CHI 2020, a conference focused on human-computer interaction, researchers described their walking vibe system, which uses simple head-mounted haptics to provide sensations that synchronize with the movement of the user in virtual reality. After conducting an initial study with 240 participants, the researchers say that the system can significantly reduce discomfort associated with smooth locomotion and even improve immersion. You know what that means? It means footsteps, right? Or wind, or whatever it is that you get in real life. The impact from your feet moving to your head goes, oh yeah, no, your whole body is in rhythm. Your feet are moving, your vision is moving. Everything that your body is conveying to you is conveying a sensation of moving forward. Haptics in the headset is one small part of that, to be able to go, like every time you take a step, maybe like give you a little bit of a thump, just like something really, really subtle. And so this is the study that we've been pointing to. It's like three different universities have been doing this study and finding out that this is actually the case. If you think that haptics in the headset on Sony's part is just for immersion's sake, it's not. Sony, from day one, you can tell with their certification process, have been insanely concerned about motion sickness and making sure that when you start up a VR game, you don't fucking vomit, right? You talk to any developer who's willing to tell you what the Sony certification stuff is, they will tell you that most games you need to start up with vignettes on, right? Like the blinders. Most games you need to start up with teleportation on. Most games you need to start this because that's part of Sony's rules. Right? That's why you have to go through all the menus and change it to smooth turning and turn up smooth turning and do all the other things that you need to do in order to make it more immersive, because Sony tells you that you have to. They're super concerned about motion sickness. That's why PSVR2 will have haptics in the headset. Not because it's going to increase immersion, that'll be nice, but because they're trying to reduce motion sickness. That is a number one goal for them, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a few of these very big hurdles to mainstream adoption. There aren't many, but this is one of the big ones. Is overcoming discomfort and VR sickness. So I got to imagine that quite a lot of money has gone into research in this area over the past 6+ years since Sony has been in consumer VR.
Agreed. Man, we are going super duper long here. I got a few tips to discuss here, Wes. But let's make sure we have said everything we want to say about Kojima. The last thing I want to say, I guess, is that I'm obviously very curious what he has in mind. Obviously, PT gave us a little look as to what he considered a horror genre to be like. And it was mind blowing. We're still talking about it all these years later, and it was just a demo. It was just a teaser. And so, you say what you want about Kojima. I know a lot of people out there think that he's like overrated or whatever. He's done a lot of amazing stuff. So when it comes to VR, I'd like to see what he has in mind, like what he would consider VR to be, like what advancements in gaming he could bring to VR. Just very curious. He's even geniuses, even people that you look at Miyamoto. Even Miyamoto has had flops, right? He's certainly gone down the wrong path here and there. So I have a feeling that whatever Kojima does in VR would be amazing.
Yeah, I do think he will have. I would expect him to have come up with new ways to use the technology to immerse the player. And it doesn't matter what medium his content comes across on. He's always shown a desire or an interest rather in immersive storytelling and ways to immerse the end user in the stories that he is trying to tell. And he tries to come up with ways outside of the box to do that. And that's what's so exciting about the prospect of this guy ever getting his hands on a disruptive technology like VR, because we know he's going to take it to places it's never been before. Again, I'm fully confident that we are going to get there one day, and I'm fully confident that it is going to be amazing. whenever that day does come.
Yeah. We've got Louis M. Huesca, again, probably mispronouncing that, with a $2 tip, says, if Miyazaki made an exclusive for Sony, Kojima can. I'm trying to remember. I know Ni no Kuni was PlayStation 3 exclusive. That was made with Miyazaki. Am I forgetting a game that Miyazaki made?
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank. Oh, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Sadukar 7th Legion with the 2 quid says, apology in advance, Brian. I'm rubbish at Fortnite. Don't worry, man. I generally get carried through every single match by my amazing teammates. And if they're Canadian, even more so. That's a shout out to Rypop and his brother. Jeppy Condal with the $5 tip says, just having a blast going through my PSVR backlog, and I appreciate the crap out of this channel and all the game cats. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Jeppy Condal. I appreciate you. It is crazy, man. It's crazy going back and like looking at old reviews and, you know, stuff that you haven't looked at. I'm sure you can do the same thing, Wes. You look back at like some of the early stuff you've done, and it just feels like night and day, like a totally different experience.
I cringe so bad when I look back on that stuff because I'm still learning. You know, I'm still kind of learning how to do this. Completely self-taught, had no prior experience, and yeah, that early stuff, man, is just terrible. I don't know why I leave it up. I know some people like going back and watching it, but not me. I don't like looking at it. It makes me cringe every time.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you. I don't like looking at it. People have told me, I've seen comments appear on the very first episode of Gaming Without Parole, and it's just, whew, I'm like, did you make it through the whole thing? Because there's no way I would have. But yeah, self-taught. I think most of us are, and you know, even though I've been doing this for 7, 8 years now, every day, man, I feel like I'm learning something every single day, and I hope I look back at this video that we're doing today, Wes, and cringe 5 years from now. I hope that's how far we move forward. As
opposed to tomorrow looking back on it and cringing.
Yeah, I do that pretty frequently too, so can't lie about that. Yeah. All right, man, you know what time it is?
I do.
It is time.
It's your turn.
For PSVR 20 questions, which means I'm the host, and I've got a PSVR game in this head of mine, and you, Wes, and all the cats out there have 20 yes or no questions in only 6 minutes on the clock to figure out what PSVR game I'm thinking of. Wes, are you ready?
I am never ready, Brian, but that's okay because I have the cats at my back, and we're going to do it together.
Hell yeah! I want to make sure real quick that I have the store listing up on the screen so I can reference it in case there's anything I've forgotten about this game since it came out 3 months ago. Is he kidding? Is he not kidding? You'll never know. On your mark, get Des, go.
Did this game come out in the last 2 years, Brian?
I'm going to say no.
He was kidding. Okay. Does this game support thumbsticks?
No.
No. All right. So move controllers, we suspect. Does it support full locomotion?
Yeah.
Okay. Full locomotion with move controllers. Interesting. Is it a shooter?
No, it's not a shooter.
Is it a puzzler?
Nope, not a puzzler. That's 5.
Okay. So, full locomotion with move controllers. Not a shooter, not a puzzler. Interesting. Is it a... Well, no, it wouldn't be a rhythm game. Is it a horror game?
No.
No. Science fiction?
Nope.
Does it feature melee combat?
Yeah. Melee combat, yes. That's 8.
I see. Does it involve swords?
No. No swords.
Is it a sports game?
Yeah, you'd consider this a sports game. That's 10.
Okay. Is it a boxing game?
It is a boxing game.
Let's see. Was it developed by Servios?
It was developed by Servios.
Is this game Creed Rise to Glory, Brian?
It is Creed Rise to Glory by Servios. came out in the year of our Lord 2018, September 25th, just 2 days before my birthday. What a great present this was. $30. Wes, I have a new appreciation for Creed Rise to Glory after playing Manny Boxing VR. Yeah, good stuff.
Although I kind of want Manny to be a character in Creed now after I saw that.
Oh my gosh, so bad. It was so bad. So bad. This just proves, man, it proves that once upon a time, PSVR games were better than they are now. We were getting a better steady stream of decent games or good games. And now it's, more than not. They're definitely rough. All right, Wes, it is time to get out of here. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Man, the next time we see you, this is really exciting, Wes. The next time we see you, you will no longer be in Fallout 4. You will be in New Vegas.
Well, for the record, I'm in City 17 right now. This is Half-Life Alyx.
Sorry,
but I was in Fallout 4 last week, and I'll be in New Vegas next week or Old Vegas. I'll be in one of the Vegases. I don't know exactly what that's going to mean for my schedule. I would assume. Wait a minute. No, next Wednesday. I will be.
Next Wednesday is the CES event, I believe.
It is the Sony press conference, which takes place at 8 p.m.
Eastern
time.
Yep.
So whether or not I'll be on here live with you before that, I'm not sure yet. It just really depends on a lot of different things.
Here's what I'm thinking,
But
Wes.
I can say, okay.
Here's what I'm thinking. We don't do GamesCast live at 6 p.m. We maybe AJ and I or whoever's around can just, as we always do, live stream the event, right? And talk about it, whatever, right? You'll be on the show floor as it's happening. And then once you get back to your hotel room, we do a GamesCast live, like an actual GamesCast live from your hotel room. We talk about everything that happened. You can tell us about everything that you saw and went hands-on with. And so we still get to talk to you live that night. And we get to cover the event, as it's going on. What do you think?
I love it. I'm down, bro. Count me in. That sounds perfect.
Nice. Josh Cat with the $2 tip says, I waited a long time for Heavenly Sword. It sucks. It's not great. It's not great. Like, I think the God of War games on PS2 are better than the PS3 launch title, Heavenly Sword, or maybe not launch title, soon after launch, whatever it was. It was like, it's all right. I liked it. Not great. But yeah, so we'll be seeing you next Wednesday for sure, Wes, no matter how it goes down. But thank you to everybody out there keeping this channel alive. Thank you for all the tips. Thank you for everyone who supports the channel on patreon.com/withoutparole Thanks to all the mods making my life so much easier. Sci-Fi Game Cat Henry putting timestamps into this sucker after it goes down. Jay Meow for getting this up on podcast services of your choice for, that's right, your oral pleasure. Again, everyone who supports the channel financially, everyone who helped you out with 20 questions tonight, Wes, everyone who participated in the chat during the show, and of course, everyone who sat back and watched the show, didn't say a goddamn word. We know you're out there, and we love you just as much. Let's get out of here, Wes. Santa Car 7th Legion says, we need to start a GoFundMe for Wes's bail money.
Please do, man. I could, I'm sure I'm going to need the help. This will be my first time anywhere like Vegas. So I'm sure I'm going to be off the chain and a complete mess when you see me next time.
Oh, man. I didn't even consider that. I was like, are we going to have to rein him in? Are we going to have to do a sobriety test before we start the stream? You're going to have to say the alphabet backwards, which, by the way, I think is fucking bullshit. Having to say the alphabet backwards, no one can do that sober. I mean, can you?
Yeah. No, I don't think I can do that right now. But I will say this. I should be in decent shape next Wednesday because all the parties and things are on Friday night. So maybe the following Wednesday I might be MIA or something, and that might be when we need to get the GoFundMe up in full effect.
It'll be okay.
I agree.
Nice. In the meantime, dude, Happy New Year's, and we'll see you soon. Have a safe trip.
Thank you.
Can't wait to see you from the show floor, man. It's gonna be awesome. Very exciting.
I can't wait. I'm so excited, nervous, and excited. I can't wait, and so happy and thankful to be able to do this for all of you. So yeah, I look forward to it, and I'll see you all next week.
All right. And in the meantime, don't forget, join us on Discord. This conversation happens 24/7. Subscribe to Wes's channel, Virtual Strangers. Click that link in the description below, and be safe, everybody. We love you so much. Oh, Orwando Cat, Kiernando Cat. Oh, with a nice, awesome name change. Last minute with the €20 says, good night. Good night, Orwando Cat.